And good evening, I'm Adam Longo, live outside of the United States Capitol along Independence Avenue, where 48 hours earlier, a crush of angry protesters descended upon the citadel of democracy, this building behind me, the Capitol, in an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election. They stormed the Capitol. They threatened the lawmakers who were inside and had to make a very quick and harrowing escape. We'll be talking about that as we move forward today. But the scene out here is much different than the scene that we saw 48 hours earlier. There is a large, unscalable fence surrounding the perimeter of the United States Capitol. There are armed Capitol police officers, members of the military, a platoon of Virginia State Patrol troopers here as well. So the scene is a lot different. There are no protesters, there are no chanting, there is no singing, as we saw from that protest group outside of the inaugural platform on Wednesday. And we'll be able to show you some of that video as we move forward throughout the newscast today. But we begin this newscast today with some very somber news that a Capitol police officer lost his life while protecting this building on Wednesday. Early this morning, we learned that he died in the siege on the Capitol. This video from last night here, a line of police cars lined up in silence to honor Officer Brian Sicknick. We are learning more tonight about the circumstances of his very sad and very untimely death.
Adam.
That is the most pressing thing, Bruce, right now, finding this person or the people responsible. And then other questions have to be asked about the level of preparation that Capitol Police did or did not have going into this, because that is a major contributing factor as well. Trapped. America's elected lawmakers were trapped in the very chamber where they do democracy's most sacred duties. Northern Virginia Congressman Jerry Connolly was there in the chamber on the House floor as that siege of protesters and rioters moved forward toward the chamber. I talked to him last night about that harrowing experience, about what he saw and how he was able to escape.
I saw
one thing that we haven't addressed in this newscast yet is, where is President Trump and what is he doing today? There was talk he would go to Camp David. That was indeed called off. I have here the daily guidance and press schedule for the president today, and there's only one thing noted on that schedule. I'm going to read it verbatim. President Trump will work from early in the morning until late in the evening. He will make many calls and have many meetings. Very little word from the White House today on this, on the pandemic, or any other number of pressing issues affecting this country. WUSA9's Lorenzo Hall is with us tonight to talk about some of the big headlines and the things that we have seen unfold in the past 12 and 24 hours. Hi, Zoe.
Yeah, hey, Adam.
So that violent mob and this insurrection played out on both sides of the Capitol. Where I'm standing right now, this way, this is the side that faces the Washington Monument, right? This is the west-facing side. And on the east-facing side, the side that faces the Supreme Court, that is where the protesters made their entry into the Capitol, and that's where the focus of a lot of our video has been. But I want to show you what unfolded, as you're seeing here, on the west front of the Capitol. Between my location and the Capitol Dome, it's obscured because of the trees. That's where the inaugural platform for the inauguration is being constructed. Protesters overran that. And that's some of this brand new video that we're seeing. I talked to the man who shot it, who said that authorities here were pitifully underprepared for what they were facing. Good evening, I'm Adam Longo, live in Annapolis, Maryland, where a tornado touched down to the west of the historic downtown here in Annapolis. We have live team coverage from here in Annapolis and across the DMV tonight as the remnants of Ida continue to still sweep across our area. We're going to begin with Tom Dempsey, who's live for us in Thurmont in Frederick County, to talk more about this harrowing school bus incident and how it ended up being submerged in that water and how people ended up getting rescued out of there. Tom.
Hey, Adam. Right now, Adam.
Yeah, Tom, it's just a great illustration of how wide the swath is of damage and how large this storm is, because, I mean, Frederick County there in Thurmont, a good 40 to 50 miles as the crow flies from where I am here in Annapolis. Tom Dempsey there for us in Frederick. Thank you. Let's take you to some video now to show you more of the destruction that Ida brought across this area. This is what it looks like tonight in parts of Annapolis after a confirmed tornado touchdown here in Anne Arundel County. West Street, that's where I'm standing. Going to talk more about that in a second. It just looks like a war zone. Signs, trees, power lines just down all across the roadway. Take a look at this. Here's that area earlier. You can actually see debris flying out there and just sort of all over. This video was taken by one of our viewers. And then in Edgewater, which is to the south and west of here, live report from there in just a moment, a possible tornado here tearing a roof off of a house. As you can see here, this is on South River Colony. Now, where I am here in Annapolis is on West Street, and behind me, there's about a quarter-mile stretch of this road as I have my photographer, Tom Companion, move in here. Busy with businesses, fast food restaurants. This whole area has been evacuated except for the workers you see there right now. That is because BG&E, Baltimore Gas and Electric, they are dealing with multiple gas leaks. A much better view here from Sky 9. Overhead, you can see just a wide swath of this damage. So BG&E crews are trying to plug multiple gas leaks right now, and just now, for the first time in the past 4 hours, I can actually hear heavy equipment starting and crews trying to get the debris. What you see there is the awning of a McDonald's sign that's in the middle of the road. Now they're moving out of the way. This to me is giving me an indication that they may have that gas leak under control because they had been holding off on doing all of this work. Now, a guy who lives in a house right behind this McDonald's on the street here, we talked to him. He was in a van when he got the emergency alert on his phone that severe weather was moving in. I had a chance to talk to him about what it was like to go through that. Listen. So he's okay. Everyone here along West Street in this area was okay. No reported injuries. What's interesting from talking to that gentleman and a few other people out here, they all got warnings on their phone that said that there was severe weather imminent to their location. But as a lot of us get those alerts on our phone all the time, I mean, they believed that severe weather was coming. They just didn't think it was going to be that bad and affect them that harshly. Now, I want to check in now with Chief Meteorologist Top Rashut back in the studio because, Top, we've been getting bands of rain here in true tropical weather fashion. They've been coming, ebbing, and flowing. What are we likely to see here in Annapolis and across the metro area for the rest of the night? Well, Hi, Larry, and good evening. I'm Adam Longo on our other big story tonight, this massive building collapse in Northwest Washington. 5 construction workers injured. Fortunately, none of their injuries life-threatening. That's where we're going to begin tonight, here at the scene of this collapse on Kennedy Street in Northwest near 9th, a much less hectic scene than it was about 24 hours earlier when crews had to rescue a construction worker who was trapped under pancaked debris under 3 stories of wood and plywood, exposed nails and sheared off wood. They had to pull that construction worker out. He is in the hospital right now. We're going to be talking more about his condition coming up in just a moment. But we're able to bring you a lot closer to the scene tonight than we were yesterday or even this morning because DC Fire and all the crews from the city have cleared out of here. Now an investigation starts to get underway. What exactly caused this building to come down? But it was a great moment that we saw yesterday when that construction worker was lifted out by DC Fire and EMS and taken to the hospital. That's where we're going to go now. Our Colby Satterfield is live for us at MedStar Washington Hospital. Colby, you had a chance to talk with the sister of this construction worker. We know he's in surgery now. What is she saying? What do we know about his condition? All right, Colby, thank you. He is very fortunate given the amount of debris and wood that came down on top of him and how it happened. Colby, okay, thank you. Now, one of the other big questions that we're working to answer tonight, and it actually might take some time before we're able to answer, how did this collapse actually happen? So there are a lot of tough and pointed questions tonight being directed towards the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs here in D.C. That's DCRA. That is the organization within the city that's in charge of building permits and inspections. As Bruce LeShan tells us, neighbors in this area had a lot of questions and had actually made some complaints about this building to them. Here's Bruce to bring us up to speed. Yeah, that report from Bruce there just highlights now the intricate work will begin of going through all of this massive devastation and debris to try to find the actual structural point here that failed and led to this collapse. We know that that investigation could take quite some time. And good evening, I'm Adam Longo live from Capitol Hill, where this momentum just continues to advance more and more each year. DC statehood for only the second time in history in front of senators here on Capitol Hill. It has passed the House of Representatives the last 2 years in a row. DC leaders optimistic, but at the same time realistic. There was a rally outside at 2nd and East Capitol earlier this morning where all of the proponents of DC statehood gathered again. This has become a norm for them to gather outside of the Capitol on the morning before one of these hearings to celebrate the chance of them becoming the 51st state. The hearing itself today in the Senate lasting about 2.5 hours. I'd like you to listen in real quick because I was able to talk with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and D.C.'s elected delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton of their impressions coming out of that meeting today. Listen. So the question there to Delegate Norton, it kind of gets in the weeds here, but the markup procedure. So essentially for this to advance to the Senate floor for a vote, it would have to go back and be discussed again in this same committee. Republicans would likely propose amendments and then the committee would vote. Now, because of the 50-50 tie in the Senate, if there is a tie in the committee, there are 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats on the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee where this hearing was held today. If it's a tie, it would still advance to the floor for a full vote. We'll be talking about that moving forward and the potential for that vote coming up just a little bit later in the show. But right now I want to talk about the energy and the movement that was outside the Capitol today. Our Jess Arnold was able to speak with some of the advocates and folks out there rallying for change to advance D.C. as the 51st state.
Our Adam Longo is anchoring from a rooftop over the White House. Adam, you have quite the seat there, quite the view. What have you seen out there so far?
So Lorenzo, Leslie, good evening. From our perch high above the White House, we have been able to see a lot of what has unfolded throughout the course of the day. Of course, early this morning, Marine One lifting off from the south lawn of the White House, and then shortly before the swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol, moving trucks moving around the White House. We also saw the motorcade escort the president and vice president to Arlington, and then we saw the part of the parade right here in front of the White House along Pennsylvania Avenue with both the president and vice president separately walking that stretch between 15th Street and the entrance of the north lawn here, entering on the north portico driveway down Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, what we've been able to see from this vantage point is obviously much different from what members of the general public were able to see from their vantage point, because they weren't able to see much of anything at all, except for a number of checkpoints, a number of barricades, platoons of National Guard soldiers dispersed throughout D.C. It is a city in lockdown. There is quite a security apparatus present today. No member of the general public, without any sort of credential, was able to get anywhere close to the parade or any of the inaugural festivities today. Lorenzo.
All right, Adam, thank you.
The sun rose above the White House this morning, marking a new era in this country. Hours later, Joseph R. Biden became the 46th president of the United States, and tonight he is already at work inside the building behind me. As a matter of fact, I was just able to turn around a moment ago. Standing guard outside of the main entrance to the West Wing is a United States Marine, which is typically the sign that the president is present in the Oval Office. He was expected there about this time to sign another flurry of executive orders. We expect to see some video of that coming up shortly. Yeah, one of the things that strikes me the most was actually something that I noticed before I even got here, and that's how eerie, almost apocalyptic the streets of Washington were today. I live in Upper Montgomery County, Maryland. It only took me 50 minutes to reach my spot here right above the White House, which is unheard of. The best way I could think to describe it is almost a snow day without the snow. I mean, the streets were just empty. I parked downtown just a couple blocks away from here. Not many people out walking about, because anyone who was down here hoping to catch a glimpse of any of the inaugural activities were sorely disappointed when they were turned away by the number of security checkpoints down here. But just very quiet and very unusual for a city that's usually filled with so much hustle and bustle, even in the height of a pandemic. Very quiet, people taking the hint to stay home and stay away. Les?